My final opinion on the iPhone 17 3 months after its release. Why 3 months after its release? Because it seems like a good amount of time to test it in many different conditions, on a daily basis. Especially since Apple has had time to release updates, mainly for the camera. Why only the iPhone 17 and not the Pro or the iPhone Air? Because this year, Apple has 3 options that are very different in my opinion, so I wanted to make 3 separate short videos. Let me know this year if that works, or if you'd rather group everything, and we'll adapt. We're here to serve you. Why an opinion, not a review? Because I've already covered everything about the iPhone 17 in previous videos. This isn't our first one. But I wanted to give a raw, unfiltered opinion to the remaining potential buyers this year, for Christmas, after Christmas. But actually, I especially want to address future buyers. Hello future buyers, I hope everything is going well. You don't speak Russian yet? Bad joke, such a 2025 joke. Yes, because I've noticed it on my iPhone videos. There are a lot of you watching them 2, 3, even 4 years later. The used iPhone market is very active. And it's often a very good purchase. So this iPhone 17, which we'll call the standard, well, it looks exactly like the 16. And yet, I'm saying it right from the introduction, this is definitely the iPhone to buy in the 2025 iPhone series. It's better than the Pro, it's better than the R, and I'll explain why. But before we get started, let's thank the sponsor of this video. And the sponsor is Olafly. And that's actually pretty convenient, because often when you choose a new smartphone, it's also because you're thinking about traveling. And traveling with a smartphone often ends up being a bit of a hassle. You end up desperately looking for a store to buy a local SIM card. And that often happens on the first day, right after you land. You don't even have time to go to the hotel. And Olafly is the solution. Because Olafly offers travel eSIMs. You buy your Olafly eSIM, you can install it immediately and use it as soon as you activate mobile data upon your arrival. And you instantly have network access. What's really great about Olafly is their unlimited data system. And if you ever need to stay longer, they have a whole top-up system that's very convenient to use. And if you're someone who likes to plan ahead, or you're counting every penny for your trip, which is understandable, they have a data calculator that will let you easily estimate how many gigabytes you'll need for your trip, depending on how you use your smartphone. Another great thing about Olafly is that there are no hidden fees. And as you may have gathered, it's a real eSIM. For example, on an iPhone, you can easily keep your physical SIM card, the one you use at home. The eSIM will be added on top, since you can use an eSIM along with a physical card. Which means, and this will interest quite a few people, that you don't have to change your number, for example, on WhatsApp. So, to get started, you can either go to the Olafly eSIM website at eSIM.olafly.com or directly through the Olafly app. The app has the advantage of automatically checking if your smartphone is compatible with eSIM. And you have 3 installation methods: QR code, manual installation, or one-click installation if you're on iOS version 17.4 or higher. And if you ever have a problem, Olafly takes care of everything. Support is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, via chat or WhatsApp. And there are already quite a few people who trust Olafly. They have a Trustpilot rating of 4.5 with over 60,000 reviews. So if you're traveling soon, I'll put the link to Olafly in the description of this video. And on top of that, if you use the promo code NOWTECH, you'll get 5% off. In any case, we want to thank Olafly for helping us bring you these videos, and now let's get right back to the final review of the iPhone 17. I've already mentioned it feels the same as the 16 in hand. I'll even say something. If you're buying this iPhone just to show off, like I've got the latest iPhone, it's gonna be pointless. No one will notice that you have the new 2025 iPhone, unless the person knows all the different colors by heart for each year. In terms of finish, we have the same aluminum finishes, high quality glass, so it's a premium finish, it's very nice. It's just not different from the 16. Compared to, for example, what the iPhone R brings, there's no wow factor in the design. However, where you'll be really satisfied is with the screen. Actually, it's more of a big relief because Apple should have done this 2 or 3 years ago. Now we have a real pro screen on the standard iPhone 17. The real 120Hz, the real LTPO, the real promotion. If you're coming from Apple's previous stinginess, you're really going to feel the difference. You'll have all the comfort and enjoyment of always on. The clock mode that I use every day, well, every night. the permanent information on the lock screen. We even have a slightly larger display while keeping the same size and above all, more brightness, which was already very good, but now it's even better. Honestly, you won't notice any difference compared to the Pro screen. And that's a mini revolution at Apple. Once again, they should have done this a long time ago, but let's not spoil our enjoyment. Finally, they've done it. And that's kind of the feeling you'll have with the performance of this iPhone 17. It's equipped with the same latest generation A19 chip. Now, it's not exactly the same chip as the iPhone 17 Pro. You'll have less RAM, you'll have a bit less 3D graphics performance. But honestly, as we're showing you here, with video games that have a lot of graphics, everything is super smooth. I have a hard time seeing what the real use cases are, where you'd notice the difference in power versus the Pro. And this RAM difference shouldn't bother you, except with Apple Intelligence. If we've seen an increase in RAM at Apple in recent years, it's because of the arrival of Apple Intelligence, which is supposed to run locally. So for buyers in 2025, it doesn't matter to you. Apple Intelligence is far from what it should be. But here I'm speaking to future buyers. Maybe Apple has finally managed to get Apple Intelligence and Siri to run locally and actually work well. And at that point, the difference in RAM might be important for you. Maybe we can even imagine that in 2, 3 or 4 years, there will be Apple Intelligence features that won't be available on the standard iPhone 17, while they will be available on the iPhone 17 Pro. It wouldn't be the first time Apple has done something like that. And what about heat dissipation, since this iPhone 17 doesn't have all the fancy stuff like vapor chambers and all that? Personally, I haven't noticed any really bothersome heating, even after playing a 3D game for a long time. Or if you use the camera for a long time, it's fine, it doesn't get too hot. Battery life isn't bad either. That's why I like having 3 months of experience. With updates done, you can truly see how the battery performs daily. I'm not doing scientific tests. I'm not taking apart the iPhone 17. I'd say the battery life is good, even very good on this iPhone 17. And that's true even if you use it pretty heavily throughout the day. Of course, if you spend your whole day doom scrolling on TikTok, you're done for. But honestly, you're already dead inside anyway. And I'm not saying that like an old man, okay? I'm just saying that I too have doom scrolled on TikTok, and I too have died inside. The battery is slightly bigger. You can really tell that Apple has optimized things well on the software side, the screen, and the battery size. Apple claims 30 hours of video playback, and I don't think that's just marketing talk. I know some of you will regret that there's no iPhone 17 Plus, like in previous years, and that this year you have to go for the iPhone 17 Pro Max to get the biggest battery size, and the cost that comes with it. Okay, what's the pitting? But more than the battery, the real difference that people coming from an iPhone 11, 12 or even 13 will notice is the charging speed. It's been increased. Apple doesn't go for crazy charging speeds, you know? We're talking about 40 watts, but it still lets you charge to 50% in 20 minutes. That's going to change how you use your iPhone. There's definitely less stress when you're 20 minutes away from leaving. You know you can charge up and head out for a crazy night with the base storage. Finally, Apple has come to its senses. They're stopping with the penny pinching. You get 256 for the price of 128. At least what the 128 version cost on the iPhone 16. Now by default, you get 256. If you want more capacity, you know it's been expensive for a long time to upgrade storage with Apple, so just be warned, that's my biggest regret. For storage, it's mainly about data transfer. Apple has been a bit stingy by sticking with USB 2 on its USB-C port, which makes file transfers really slow, especially when you have to transfer videos. And since we're talking about videos, we've talked about photos and videos. For some of you, that's an important factor when buying your iPhone. Well, what my colleagues told you is absolutely true. It's a Pro. The only thing it's missing is the telephoto lens. There is a dual sensor lens setup on the back, a wide angle at 48 megapixels, and finally an ultra wide at 48 megapixels as well. And these are the same sensors as on the iPhone 17 Pro. So you won't have exactly the same image processing power, which can cause some differences in the pictures. But look here, I'm showing regular photos taken with the iPhone 17 Pro and others with the iPhone 17. You can't see the difference. And actually, you can't even tell that we had switched the signs. This extra processing power will allow you to have more advanced photo features. But I'll explain that in the iPhone 17 Pro video. What you need to remember if you're buying the iPhone 17 is that when it comes to JPEGs, you'll get the same photos as the Pro. It's just that you won't be able to take RAW photos. And I'll say it again, in 2025, RAW photos aren't higher quality. It's just more flexibility for image processing. We don't have a telephoto lens, but we do have the famous crop on the sensor. It's a bit better in quality than a purely digital crop. It will simulate a 2x zoom. It's going to be perfect for portrait. And honestly, it worked very well on the 16. It works very well on the 17. In terms of quality, you're not going to see a spectacular improvement. But honestly, we haven't seen a spectacular improvement in quality since basically the iPhone 13. Smartphone photography is really hitting its limits. And if I show you these two photos, you won't be able to see the difference between the photo from the iPhone 16 and the photo from the iPhone 17. There is one area where the iPhone 17 will be a little bit better. It's really in low light, especially in very low light. There you'll see a real difference. So that could be a deciding factor if taking photos at night is something you enjoy. In that case, you really get a noticeable improvement in quality. That's with the ultra-wide angle. The 48 megapixels are really welcome, because if there are any photos I like to crop, it's definitely ultra-wide angle shots. I like the ultra-wide angle effect, but sometimes I also like to zoom in on a detail. And that was something that was much harder to do with the previous generation of ultra-wide angle. Not to mention, the ultra-wide angle is what lets you take macro photos. And those are also photos. We're happy to be able to crop into them when it comes to video performance. Here too, it's pretty standard. Apple still keeps its iPhone slightly ahead of the competition when it comes to video. Not necessarily in pure performance, since this iPhone doesn't shoot in 8K. But on the other hand, it does 4K, 4K 60 without compromise, which is harder to find on other devices. The stabilization is really excellent. The color rendering is really, really good. And for those who make vlogs or short-form videos, we have this new front-facing camera. I'm going to talk about it in much more detail in the iPhone R review. I think it's a very good innovation Apple came up with this square sensor. By the way, we can see that DJI, their next camera, will also have a square sensor. It's giving a lot of people a lot of ideas. In short, all of this makes the iPhone 17 really the perfect vacation camera, in my opinion. You absolutely don't need the advanced Pro video features to make vacation videos. And that's even more true now that, finally, natively, there's a feature that lets you combine the selfie camera with a front camera into a single image, making your memories even more vivid. So I know that the lack of a telephoto lens will be a drawback for some people. And I'm not going to be like some of those somewhat condescending photographers who tell you, well, just zoom with your feet. It's not always possible to zoom with your feet. When you're taking photos or videos of sports, or if you're on the edge of a cliff especially, don't zoom with your feet. Did you see the eagle over there? So, if your photography style really calls for a telephoto lens, but you don't have the budget to get an iPhone 17 Pro, go for a 16 Pro or a 15 Pro instead. But otherwise, I think it's better to buy an iPhone 17 if you don't need the telephoto lens. Because still, there are improvements in low-light photography. There's the 48 megapixel ultra-wide, a better screen to judge your photos, but otherwise, in terms of pure photo quality, it's still the same iPhone quality. Some people will tell me that there are Android phones that are better for photos, and why not? What I like about iPhone photo quality is their consistency. It's kind of what they've done with sound with the AirPods. You never get any bad surprises. On the other hand, you don't really get surprising images. There's consistency, you know how the photo will turn out. The colors are balanced, the dynamic range is excellent. The HDR isn't overdone, the photos are very flattering, some might say too flattering. Yes, it's missing some of the pro image features, especially for video. But I guarantee you, and I'll talk about it again in the video dedicated to the iPhone 17 Pro, even among professionals, these features aren't always used. These are really features that are unnecessary for, let's say, 99% of people. Since in this video I'm speaking to future buyers, it's important to talk a little about sustainability. Greenwashing isn't really in fashion anymore in 2025 in the Trump era. Apple doesn't brag too much about the recycled materials used to make this iPhone 17. When it comes to repairability, the score isn't great. We're very far from the Fairphone, for example. So it's an iPhone, I'd say. It's well made, it's well finished, you can tell it's well designed, but it won't be very repairable. Except, of course, for the battery replacement. replacement, which is now easier. So all we can say is that in 2025, Apple has done absolutely nothing to improve the durability of its iPhones. We really wish there would be progress in that direction. That being said, in my opinion, the iPhone 17 is an excellent choice. Actually, a better second-hand choice than an iPhone 16 or an iPhone 15, which had problems and, above all, had features that were artificially limited compared to the Pro, in order to create artificial product segmentation. You could almost say the iPhone 17 one weak point that's barely a weakness at all. Of course, it's missing the telephoto lens, but that's where the lineup segmentation really shows. Knowing that this telephoto lens will still cost you more than 300 euros, it makes you think. Buying a pair of sneakers to zoom in with your feet. And for me, what really made me happy this year in Apple's presentation is that the real star is once again the iPhone 17. The Pro is really an extension for pros and super pros. And the R is the premium version of the iPhone 17, and it didn't sell very well. By the way, check out my review of the iPhone R. Anyway, it feels good not to feel forced to get the Pro to have the best iPhone. For an iPhone, that's a very good price. I say for an iPhone because, as usual on Android, you'll get better value for money. I'm convinced of that. But for an iPhone, 969 euros in 2025, the year it comes out, that's not bad at all. And for future buyers, I think it will lose value a little less quickly than the iPhone 15 or the iPhone 16. These three final review videos on the iPhone 17 Pro and the iPhone Air, we're going to try to release them together so you don't have to wait too long. If you're new to the channel, subscribe so you don't miss out. We'll also put the link to our playlist with all our Apple and iPhone videos, and there are a lot of them on the channel. Feel free to leave a comment if you've bought the iPhone 17, whether you're happy with it so far or not. These opinions are valuable to share with potential buyers. And I'll see you very soon in the next video.